Hey, I'm Nick DiMatteo, and welcome to Music is Not a Genre, the interview edition. This is, I believe, that's right, the 26th interview in the series, if I'm counting correctly. Thank you, as always, for watching and listening. Don't forget you can support this podcast and my band Rec's music at patreon.com/music is not a genre. You can support the audio version of this podcast at anchor.fm/music is not a genre. The public hub for much of this, especially these podcasts here, is youtube.com/Nick DiMatteo. And of course, there's always my website, nickdimatteo.com, where you can get pretty much everything. Last but not least, certainly not least, most important to me, please support my band Rec's music at recarea.bandcamp.com. With me today, I'm very excited about this guest. We've been kind of bouncing back and forth a little with a few things here and there for the last year or two. And finally, we're able to get this schedule together. It is John Kiran Fernandes. He is a musician, label owner of Cloud Recordings, and the father of musician artist Jeremy Kiran Fernandes. John, how are you today?
I'm doing well.
That's great.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Oh, you are so welcome. Thank you for saying yes. I send out, a handful of invitations, and I'm always excited when the people that I want to talk to say yes. So thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. So now you are in Athens, Georgia, you said.
That's correct. Yeah.
That's great. Now, the only reason I want to start there is because I know that there's a rich history of music in Athens.
Yeah.
And I certainly don't know everything. You probably know much more than I do, but I know from my teens and 20s, listening to bands like REM and those have roots in that area, right?
Yeah. The B-52s, Pylon,
right?
Big Chestnut.
Oh God, yeah, okay. And a personal favorite of mine. This is just a side note, especially for anybody who's a fan. I did a podcast episode a season or two ago on this guy Matthew Sweet, who's not from Athens, but he spent a lot of time in Athens way back in the 80s and actually worked with Michael Stipe and some people down there.
Yeah, I read that off Michael Stipe's Wikipedia page just recently.
Oh, yeah. That's probably where I read it too, or one of those pages. So I usually start by asking my guests how we know each other, but we don't really know each other, do we?
No.
Yeah, I mean,
not yet.
Not yet, exactly. That's what we're hoping to get there in this interview. What I found just really endearing, frankly, and other than I follow your posts on Facebook, and it's just everything you share is so positive.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and whether it's about the music or about something from your life, and I love that, and that kind of trickled over into, I want to say it was last year, you sent me a happy birthday message with I think a song about Sagittarius or something like that.
Yeah. Mary Lou Williams did a whole Zodiac suite where she did a piano piece for each sign of the Zodiac.
God, that's so cool. And that's something that I didn't know about at all.
My friend, the jazz musician from the Gold Sparkle Band, actually turned me on to her stuff. He shared the track Scorpio, and I became so enamored with that. When I saw the CD popped up at the record store where I worked, Walk Street, I got it and enjoyed it thoroughly.
That's great. God, and thank you for sending that. That just not only because it was a nice birthday wish, but it opened me up to that entire suite of music.
Awesome. Thank you.
So then why don't you, in whatever this means to you, interpret it how you wish, tell everyone your story.
My mom told me that when I was around 3 years old, like right after learning how to walk and talk, I asked her if I could take violin lessons. I actually requested that I take violin lessons. So by the time I was about 4 years old, I started taking violin lessons from this lady, Susan Keene, and I took violin lessons from when I was 4 years old until junior high. And then in junior high, I took saxophone lessons for 2 years. And then in high school, I was friends mostly with a group of girls. I was not tough enough to hang out with the kind of skater crowd and all the guys at my school. They're all in the sports and stuff like that. So I hang out mostly with girls. But then I became friends with a lot of older people that went to Louisiana Tech. Scott Spillane, who later formed the Gerbils and joined Neutral Milk Hotel, and John Dazzle. We had an early band called Smile and Joe Fission. And then I started the band Sock the Monkey with my friends Beth Sale and Lucy Calhoun, who happens to be the mother of my first child. And then I was playing bass with Scott Spillane at a coffee shop in Monroe, and Bill and Will of the Olivia Tremor Control were moving back to Athens. They had lived here for a while and then had moved around some other places and were moving back to Athens. And Bill came through Louisiana. They're both from Ruston, Louisiana. And Bill saw me playing bass with Scott and said, "Hey, Olivia Tremor Control needs a bass player. Would you want to come up and play with us?" And I was about to have my first child and wanted to raise him in someplace other than Ruston. And so I leapt at the opportunity and came up here. And at first, when I came to town, we all lived in a group house together, me, Bill, Will, and our partners. And I was only 19 at that time. So I spent 2 years kind of in solitude because I was too young to go to bars. I just worked a bunch, saving up for the birth of my first child, and hung out with Bill and Will. And we practiced. We had a drummer at that time named Kelly Noonan, and we would practice at her space. But she didn't ever want to tour. So eventually, Olivia Tremor Control, the first Olivia Tremor Control thing I appear on is the Giant Day 7-inch. That was kind of a prelude to our first album, Dusk at Cuba's Castle. And then I recorded on Dusk at Cuba's Castle, and we started touring. And at that time, we brought in Eric Harris to play drums and Peter Urchik to play keyboard. And Olivia Tremor Control, we had some really tight tours. We were really kind of scraping by, but then we started doing a bunch of tours with Apples in Stereo, our friends from Ruston, and Neutral Milk Hotel, also our friends from Ruston. And then we got on some good opening slots. We opened for Beck on the Odelay tour, opened for Stereolab on part of the Cobra and Phases group tour, did a show opening for REM. So things started happening for us pretty quickly, as well as we went in the late 90s, we went overseas and played in Europe 7 times. And then actually once Bill and Will went to do an interview trip. And so they went 8 times, but the rest of the band only went 7 times. And then we got a chance to play Japan once as well. So it all was pretty exciting for us, a real exciting time.
Yeah, that's a real, it seems like all of that happened in a pretty short period of time too.
Yeah.
Now you mentioned Olivia Tremor Control, of course, Neutral Milk Hotel, and Apples in Stereo, and I want to make a comment to the people watching and listening that this all connects, because several months ago, it might have been the year before last, I don't recall exactly, I did a podcast episode on Elephant Six, and those bands that have been associated, with that group. And it caught the attention of a guy on Facebook named Patrick Fleming. Yeah. He's doing a fan-made film dedicated to the first Olivia Tremor Control record, Dusk at Cuba's Castle. Yeah, and he showed a preview of that a little while ago, and it just really got me so excited to, see the finished product. I hope whatever he's working on to get it together comes together soon, because that's just, I think a lot of people will want to see that.
Yeah, that's exciting. There's also a book on Elephant Six out now called Endless, A Lo-Fi History of the Elephant Six Mystery, and I highly recommend that.
Ooh, I am probably going to be getting that.
Endless.
Excellent. And and so what happened, I think, was that Patrick and I went back and forth, and I ended up doing a double cover, stitched together, of two of the green typewriters from Dusk at Cubist Castle.
Nice.
Yeah, really fun. And he's including that in that. And then I think that's sort of how I connected with you. And, this is where we are today.
Oh, good.
Yeah, it's what I like about things like this is that the entire objective for what I'm doing here is connection. And these are connections that are happening because of music.
Awesome. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing.
Now, you mentioned a few things. First of all, you're a multi-instrumentalist, right?
Yeah. With Olivia Tremor Control, I would play bass, clarinet, violin, saxophone, do some backing vocals. I've been on some of the EPs. I played some keyboard as well. Nice.
I've seen some of that online, and then you also sent a link to some music that you did with Shane Parish, where you're on clarinet.
Yeah, that's the most recent thing. If you go to my Wikipedia page, it lists everything I played on. I think I've played on around 90 releases. Wow. Which most people who are aware of me are familiar with the Olivia Tremor Control and the band associated with that Circulatory system. But I really encourage people to go to my label's website, Cloud Recordings, and check out some of the other things I've played with. I've played with Dreamboat, Old Smoky, New Sound and Numbers, Super Cluster, Jacob Morris, Moths, Lavender Holyfield, a bunch of stuff.
Oh, man. Yeah, I was able to check out, first of all, that the Bandcamp for you and Shane Parish, and everyone should listen to that. That's just some great music and just surprising elements here and there. And the first instrument that I picked up after starting on piano with my father and voice was a clarinet for some reason. I think I was inspired by Artie Shaw.
Awesome. I recently bought an Artie Shaw 10-inch that I got at a flea market. It's a beautiful 10-inch, and it plays on 33, which is nice because my turntable doesn't play on 45. So when I saw that it was on 33, I was like, oh, I'm going to get this. It was only $1 too.
Oh, man, what a find. That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I didn't necessarily stick with it, but I still have that clarinet. So it was exciting to me to see, someone, you in particular, being passionate enough about the clarinet to actually do an entire, recording with it.
Yeah, it's wild because I took saxophone lessons, as I was talking about earlier, in junior high, but I never owned a sax. On Olivia Tremor Control stuff, I played a sax that I was borrowing from Andrew of Elf Power, another Elephant Six band. But I ended up with a clarinet, so I've played that all these years.
Oh, that's awesome. I think it's one of those instruments that doesn't get as much attention because the saxophone is everywhere. Yeah. So it's nice to hear that. Now, just a small question here, because I heard you mention that one of the first bands I think that you formed was Sock the Monkey.
Yeah.
So was that inspired by the name by the Peter Gabriel song?
No, that it was actually inspired years ago in Ruston. The band Beat Happening came and played actually at Jeff Mangum of Neutral Milk Hotel's invitation, he was music director at the college radio station there, KLPI. And they sold a cassette that had a track on it called Sock the Monkey, and I thought that was neat. My early band was real kind of K influenced. I was playing guitar actually with that guitar and bass and some drums. And it was real K influenced kind of lo-fi fuzzy pop. But I kind of started exploring further things like a lot of jazz and world music later on. And so if you listen to either of my solo records, those are more influenced by a lot of world music and jazz and minimalism and stuff.
And can people listen to that anywhere?
Yeah, it's on Spotify and YouTube, and then of course on my Bandcamp page as well.
That's great, and they'll see some of that on the Cloud Recordings site too. My solo albums are actually on the Cloud Recordings Bandcamp. I've got two sites, both the Cloud Recordings website and the Bandcamp page. Oh, okay. I want to check that out in particular. I'll probably just, I'll be streaming it as well, but I always like to do Bandcamp first.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. And I have to say I didn't get to hear all of what, was on the Cloud Recording site, certainly, because there's a ton on there, and it seems like an interesting array of bands.
Yeah. I was talking with my friend Shane Parish, who I sent you the link to that, how I'm still trying to get people to grasp that I went from a psych pop rock folk musician to doing kind of free jazz or improvised music with Freehand and my friend Alec Lividitis. And then now I'm doing solo shows with kind of ambient minimalism where I loop the clarinet, and I hear some parallels between that and Brian Eno's discrete music where there's non-synchronous loops going on. Mm-hmm. And then I sometimes step outside and practice with the birds. So there's lots of bird sounds played, or bird-like sounds played on the clarinet with my solo music as well.
Oh, that's incredible. That was, I think, some point last year. I think it was because I was reading a book. There's a book called Why You Like It, and it's all about why people like particular kinds of music and the science of that and the psychology and philosophy of it, and it links it to various genres and crossover genres and things like that. And it mentioned minimalism, and I kind of got into that some.
Awesome.
Now, I'm blanking on, there's a very famous composer, and I'm blanking even before Brian Eno, and I cannot remember who it is.
Let's see. There's Terry Riley. There's Philip Glass, Steve Reich.
Steve Reich. It was Steve Reich.
Oh, okay.
I had heard some Philip Glass when I was way back when I was in college, but yeah, Steve Reich I think was somewhat new to me, so it was pretty exciting to hear that. What I find really encouraging, I'll say, about minimalism in general is that you hear the word, you have a certain idea of what it is, but it's not necessarily what you might think. And to me, that's because there's certain kinds of music that have loops and whether it's certain kinds of EDM or what have you, that do incorporate elements of that, but generally there's a kind of a stricture around the repetition that they do in that kind of music. Whereas I have just found with a lot of minimalism, the way loops overlap, the things change so slowly that you almost don't hear it happening. And then all of a sudden you're into a different realm of sound.
Yeah, that's a good way to describe it. Yeah.
And I love that because repetition is huge for me. I wrote a song about it even, I understand the importance of it in music and in life in general. But to me, repetition with variation is really where it's at, Yeah.
I like the entrancing nature of a lot of repetitive music. I'm really into a pianist named Mal Waldron, which on the Eric Dolphy Booker Little Live at the 5-Spot recordings, he gets into this entrancing repetition, which is so beautiful. And I love his solo record as well called The Quest that features Eric Dolphy, in particular a track called Warm Canto.
Ooh. I know Eric Dolphy. I don't know
Mal Waldron.
No, I don't know Mal Waldron. I'll have to look that up. Yeah. The Quest. For the listeners out there who aren't consuming this on video, I'm writing things down. This stuff is too important to let pass. So
that's good. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, let's see. So with the cloud recordings, and I have particular interest in this because I'm always looking for, new labels and all of that. Is there any specific restriction you put on the music that you incorporate there, or requirement, or is there a sound that you're going for? Like what's that about?
It's kind of grown more broad over the years. What started as kind of experimental pop and rock and folk and stuff, with some cassette releases I've done recently. I did a cassette by Nim that was we called it Appalachian Minimalism, which had some Appalachian qualities, but also had some minimalism qualities. And I recorded that here in my living room where I'm sitting right now, on 4-track. And that cassette, except for one copy at Wuxtree Records, is now sold out. And then I released some American primitive, like that John Fahey or Robbie Basho style stuff, by this guy, Jacob Sunderland. And I still have copies of that cassette. And it's kind of American minimalism. American primitive, combined with experimental sounds. And it features the son of the inventor of the Buchla synthesizer on that release as well.
Oh, whoa. Okay. And when were these released?
Just in the last couple of years.
So you have released music, and now you mentioned both of them have been released on cassette.
Yeah.
Now that was a choice. Why did you make that choice?
Well, just because on the label, Olivia Tremor Control and Circulatory System has always done well, but a lot of the other releases, I just kind of was getting more and more boxes of stuff piling up around my house, upstairs at the record store where I worked, all over the place. I was kind of getting all these boxes of stuff, and I was like, okay, I need to start releasing smaller runs, and in a cheaper format, just because of the economics of it. And plus, I just like cassettes.
That and that's kind of what I'm getting at, because I did an episode on formats, and I talked about how everyone has their favorite format, and in general, the important thing is not necessarily any format, but that there's a way to listen to the music, because that's why you're doing it, is to absorb and listen to and have the experience of listening to music. But growing up in the era I did, and being, old enough to remember before CDs came along, there's a special place in my heart for cassettes.
Yeah. I do a lot of my recording on 4-track cassette. So I've always just loved the cassettes and stuff like that. There's even an Elephant Six band called the Music Tapes, which I don't know if they've ever released anything on cassette, but they probably should at some point. Yeah,
it sounds like they should. Yeah. I had a 4-track. I did most of my, probably 15 years of recordings on just that before I, came over to this monster computer. And I have seen in small shops an increase in cassettes being sold, both kind of in a retro way, like older bands re-releasing things, but even I think more so, and more exciting to me, newer bands choosing to release their material.
Yeah, they're a lot more economical. I remember doing a post at some point that cassettes are totally punk rock. Like, they're a cheap way to get your music out there, and they're just aesthetically very pleasing. And it's kind of subverts the kind of corporate nature of music and whatnot by how anybody is accessible to these things. Like, you might not be able to pay to get a vinyl pressed, but you could probably, just putting away a little money, afford to either make cassettes yourself or get a small run pressed of those.
Now, I haven't looked at that recently at all. It's been so long since I've, even considered that. But so a cassette run it's cheaper than vinyl, and it's cheaper than CDs as well.
CDs are pretty cheap too, but not that many people listen to CDs anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. That's the funny thing. And why? And it really, because if CD is a digital representation of music, so is any streaming service. And if you're lucky enough to be able to afford a streaming service that uses the higher quality files, you're kind of getting what you'd get on a CD anyway. So,
yeah.
That's poor people who are listening. You're going to have to wait a second because this is too exciting for me. So I'm going to show this. Because I'm a little bit of an obsessive about it, but these were some of the cassettes that I had done when I was just starting out. It's like these are the things that but we're talking in the 90s. This is the last time I had cassettes made.
Wow.
Yeah.
You should do some more.
I want to. I have more questions for you, but I'll just say that I'm putting out a compilation album of my band's bigger whatever songs, and then another one of cover tunes. And people have asked me about physical copies, and I think if I do that, that's going to be cassette for sure.
Oh, good.
Yeah. You've inspired me.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So now I think I'm hoping that there are two classes of people who are watching or listening to this. One would be people who have no idea who you are or where you come from, or really much of anything about the history of any of the bands you've been in or any of the music you do. And then, two would be, of course, people who already know you and already know, some of that. And I think I fall somewhere in the middle.
That's good.
Yeah, it's a good place to be. I had some knowledge of, as I said, Elephant Six and Olivia Tremor Control and the various bands other associated. I had heard of Circulatory System, but I don't have a whole lot of the detail or nitty gritty. And I don't think this needs to be kind of a history lesson, but I would love to know anything that you can impart to people who don't have any idea what Elephant Six is or Olivia Tremor Control, any important points or things you might want to say about that.
Elephant Six started as a group of friends in Ruston. Robert Schneider of Apples and Stereo, Jeff Mangum of New Tremor Hotel, Will and Bill of Olivia Tremor Control would just make these recordings for themselves and just trade them amongst each other. And then eventually we grew into, I'm also from Ruston, but I'm a little younger than those guys. So I didn't join Olivia Tremor Control until about 94 or 95. It kind of grew. We signed to other labels, but would still put the Elephant Six logo on it. So the main thing about it is friendship.
That's amazing. That you can feel that. And I guess stumbled across Olivia Tremor Control probably with Dusk at Cubist Castle.
Awesome.
And immediately kind of dived into, the music, first of all, but then where does this come from, and what's this logo, and what does all this mean? And it was, there was enough there in stores, but even kind of the earlier days of the internet where I could find things out, and that led me to Apples and Stereo and, of Montreal and some of the other bands. And I've been following several of them ever since then. And what I seem to feel from the music, but also from anything I've read, is that there is that continued connection and sense of friendship and mutual support.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's a band of mutual support.
Now, you said you joined late in Olivia Tremor Control. When did they form?
Let's see. They put out their first 7-inch. It was the trio of Jeff Mangum, who later formed New Tremor Hotel, Bill and Will. And then they put out a split single that was just Bill and Will with the Apples in stereo. And then I joined for the third release, the 7-inch Giant Day. And then I'm on everything past that.
Okay. So, yeah, still relatively early, I guess, in their career. Yeah. Nice. Yeah, I noticed that you posted, I guess, 2 days ago that it was Bill's birthday. Is that right?
Yeah.
And he just coincidentally was born the same day as my brother, but in the same year as I was born. So,
whoa, okay.
Yeah, there's like two separate connections there. And I remember, I guess it's been about a decade now since he died.
Yeah, it's been about 10 years.
Yeah. So I remember when that happened, because I'm always interested in bands who have been around for a while, maybe take a break, do other things, and then come back together to do more, and it was a period where I was kind of looking forward to that. And that was sad for me. And I'm just a listener,
Yeah. That was just really, it kind of turned my world upside down. Like we had just played a bunch of shows, played Pitchfork, played the Georgia Theater, and then I got the call a few days later that he had passed away. And we were planning on working on our third record and planning on touring the world and everything like that. And then just everything got upended. So, God,
yeah, I can't imagine. And that's one reason why I wanted to talk about this, is just, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the best way to honor Bill is to just listen to the music. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So I noticed here on your Zoom video that the name you have listed is Jeremy Kiran Fernandes.
Yeah, that's my son. I have 3 kids.
You have 3 kids. Oh, wow. Yeah. Okay. How old are they?
Robbie is 26. Sophie is 22, and 23, and then Kieran is 21.
Oh, okay. I have 3 kids as well, 22, 18, and 14. So.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah. So now you've mentioned, you asked me to mention as part of your intro, your son Jeremy. Why is that?
Because he is a musician. He plays with a band called Immaterial Possession, which their vinyl is available on the Cloud Recordings website. And he also is working on 3 solo records right now. And he's also a visual artist as well.
Oh, that's incredible. Does some of his visual art end up on like the records, or?
Yeah. On my second solo album, one of his drawings is on the slip cover that went on that. And then if you look in the gatefold to Signal Morning, he did some artwork on that. And then a lot of stuff on the Cloud Recordings Bandcamp page has artwork by him too.
Oh, nice. I just coincidentally, while we were breaking here, I went back on the Cloud Recordings site because I couldn't get on earlier today for some reason. And the first thing that popped up was Immaterial Possessions. Yeah.
They actually just signed with Fire Records out of the UK that put out early Spacemen 3 and Nutrimeric Hotel in Europe and stuff. So that's kind of exciting.
Wow. Yeah, that is exciting. And have you worked with him as well as like music wise?
No. I haven't played on any of the records, but they did put out the possibility of me playing some violin on their new album.
Oh, cool. That's cool. Yeah. I have a son, my middle child, who is pursuing a career in music. He's going to Cleveland Institute of Music for classical voice.
Awesome.
And on a few of my recordings, I asked him to, sing a little backup or what have you. But it's funny that he really, it's that age, or in particular, or personality where he's got his thing, he's pursuing his thing, and that's what he does. and I do what I do, and he respects it, but he's not all that excited about, working with dad. Yeah.
Oh, that's sad. Me and my son did a tour together, which is really neat. We played vintage clothing shops. We played art galleries. We played animal sanctuaries. It was a dream come true.
My God, that does sound like a dream come true. Yeah. What a great experience to be touring with your kid.
Yeah.
My dad's a musician, and I got to perform with him a whole lot throughout my life.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah. Now I noticed I think it was on Wikipedia that you started this label, Cloud Recordings, almost like over 20 years ago. Is that right?
Yeah. In 2001. So 21 years ago.
What prompted you to start the label?
To put out the very first Circulatory System album. It kind of goes into this in the Elephant Six book. But Olivia decided to take a break, and I played a show with Bill, Will, and Jeff Mangum of Neutral Milk Hotel, with Will, Jeff, and me. It was a trio. That's what it was. Okay. And then I was like, Will gave me some cassettes of some stuff he was working on called The Age of Mud. And I was like, this stuff's really good. We should do a record. And so I borrowed the money I was supposed to use to go to college from my mom. I borrowed $8,000 from my mom, and then another $4,000 from my ex-wife. And we, in the early days of Cloud Recordings, I was doing everything myself. I was doing all the press, distribution, mail order, everything. And it turned out so successful that we continued putting stuff out.
That's incredible.
We're on 31 releases now, with 2 releases coming up, I See Demons cassette and a Robert Schneider cassette.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. This something, for those of you who don't know, Robert Schneider is of Apples in Stereo. And that's always been, if someone asks me what quote unquote indie or lesser known bands are you listening to that you would recommend to people, usually somebody from Elephant Six pops up, and very often that's Apples in Stereo.
Oh, that's nice. That's a good band.
Yeah. And there's kind of like that kind of bright popness to a lot of what they do, which
yeah.
And so now Robert Schneider's working on something solo, is that right?
He recorded it, and we're just trying to get the artwork together now. It's more experimental. It's with stuff in a scale that he created, a non-Pythagorean scale.
Wow. So it doesn't use the regular tone system?
Intervals and stuff. Yeah.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Because I read now that you never know if what you read is true. Part of the reason why I don't do a ton of research for any interview guest is because I'd rather get it from the source, but also because a lot of what's out there is stuff that people tend to ask people already. And I'd rather talk about what just pops up in conversation.
Yeah, that's nice. That's nice.
But I did remember reading when I was doing the podcast on it way back that Robert Schneider was a teacher.
Yeah, he's a teacher, a mathematics professor. He's got his doctorate.
That is so cool. Is that, I guess that convergence, like math and music converge in a lot of ways, but is that what inspired him to make this new scale?
Well, he's always been interested in it. But he wanted to, and he's released some things, some like link sections that are in this and whatnot, but he wanted to do a full record of it.
Wow. Yeah, that's incredible. That's great. Yeah, you'll have to let me know when it's coming out, because I'm definitely going to be listening to that.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Tell me, everyone, about this project that you did with Shane Parish.
Oh, okay. He just moved to town at the beginning of the pandemic, and I've been to some of his shows, and we played some shows together, and we decided to do a collaboration, and it was really nice because we just started pressed record and just started playing, and the first notes you hear are the first notes we ever played together. And just he's such a good improviser that it just turned out really nice. Like there's lots of moments where we really link up, and it just it's one of my favorite things that I've played on for sure.
Wow. Yeah. And I think it's the kind of music that bears repeated listening, and not just because you're going to discover things that you didn't hear the first time, but because it has a depth to it that you just can't completely get on first listen.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of neat because it's not really improvised music. It's not really American primitive. It's not really jazz. It's kind of a mixture of all those things. And so it's kind of interesting.
That's a great way to describe it, because I heard all of that in there. And one of the, hallmarks of what I do on this show is the title itself, which is Music is Not a Genre, is what kind of, there's so much music that falls through the cracks to me, an unfortunate way, because the industry on the whole is so strict about, well, we have to classify you so we can market you. And then what happens to the people who are doing music that has a mix like this that isn't easily classifiable, Yeah.
Yeah.
And
another group I played with called Old Smoky was kind of like that. People thought from the name, and because we had a banjo in it, that it might be bluegrass or something like that, but it's real different. It's like, elements of the Monks and Velvet Underground and Bollywood music and Middle Eastern music and New Orleans music, all this kind of mixed together.
Oh, wow. That sounds vibrant. Jeez.
Yeah.
What a mix. Do you feel like, because I don't, if a musician says, just offers up voluntarily, my music sounds like this, that's awesome, because it's coming from the heart. That's what you want people to know. I don't like asking people, tell me what kind of music this is,
Yeah.
Would you say, so I'm not really asking that, but would you say that a lot of the music that you fold into or accept at Cloud Recordings has that quality of being a mix of things?
Yeah, definitely. There's a really good record on the label called Icy Demons, which is not really post-rock. It's not really jazz. It's not really indie. It's kind of just a lot of the stuff on the label is Super Cluster 2, which features members of Pylon and the New Sound of Numbers. It's got mandolin in it. It's just a mixture of all these different things. A lot of stuff on the label is like that.
Wow, that's incredible. There's little wins here and there of musicians in particular speaking out more about not feeling like they need to follow any certain, rules, even if the rules are self-imposed. And a lot of people who have, let's say mid-level careers tend to, be pressured to sound the same on everything they do,
Yeah.
I think if you're way up there and you don't give a shit and you're playing whatever you want and you don't have to worry about success because you've had it, you can be a David Bowie or whatever and just do something different every time. And if you're down where I am, you can pretty much do whatever you want, because there's a freedom of not having to hold to a certain persona or sound. When with the bands that you work with, do you feel like they pretty much give themselves the freedom to just do whatever comes to mind?
Yeah, definitely. I don't think there's ever been any kind of concession to pressures of you guys should do this or you should do that. Any of the groups I've played with have always done whatever feels good and natural to us.
That's wonderful. And I think that kind of aesthetic and feel and philosophy, that to me, I mean, yes, it's been around forever, but it was embodied in a very strong way in the 90s by all of the bands associated with Elephant Six. it has, resurgences periodically, but it seems like right now, for some reason, there's a real strong sense that people are looking for something other than the norm.
Oh yeah, let's hope so. Let's hope so. I did do a post just recently how on that last NutriMerc Hotel tour where Circulatory System was opening, I was playing for crowds as large as 19,000 people. And most of the time these days, I'm playing to about 12 to 20 people. So it's kind of eye-opening, but got to still keep doing what I'm passionate about. And I'll play for 2 people if, they'd listen. And so I do music for myself. And if anyone wants to listen, then I'm happy with that.
That's great. I love that. And I think it's more compelling to the people who are looking for music when they're finding things to listen to that are created because the creator just loves doing it.
Yeah, yeah.
There's no time limit. There's no other requirement other than this is what is coming from me or my group, and I want people to hear it. But first and foremost, I want it to be out in the world.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. I guess so. Neutral Milk Hotel's last tour was when?
That was probably about 6 years ago or something, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so you were making a comparison between that kind of tour with the larger crowds and then some of the music you're doing now with the smaller crowds, and you're saying ultimately it doesn't matter because you're out playing music in front of people and sharing it. Yeah.
I do it first and foremost for myself. Like, it's wild. I was telling my friend Claire recently that, I'm in kind of panic attack season where a lot of times in spring and summer, I have these really horrible panic attacks. And I was having one before our show where we played together. But as soon as I started playing this meditative, instrumental, ambient type music, it soothed me and the panic attack went away. So there's actual physical, I'm doing it because it actually soothes me.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And it's not just incredible because it works, but because you are so aware of the fact that this is something that you physically need.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. That's just kind of a restorative self-health,
Yeah. I had one the other day and I went live in the middle of it. I was telling my friend Courtney that I was having a bad panic attack and I was like, I'm going to play some music. And I just went live right in the middle of it. So.
Oh, wow. Oh, my God. And so what happened? You go live, you're in the middle of attack. Then what happened?
As I play the music, it just kind of drifts away. So.
God, incredible. That's incredible. Yeah, that's the zone that you get to.
Yeah.
Find peace. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I work with a guy. I think, well, there's 2 things really. One is I like hearing you say that you've played to crowds on both ends of the spectrum, because a lot of the people that I know and that listen to this and watch this, colleagues and such, are have mostly played to crowds, from 2 to maybe a few hundred,
Yeah.
And it can be it can be discouraging to some of them who are looking more to generate more success and make a living at it, to feel like, well, I need to have these numbers and all of that. And I guess in some degree, sometimes you do, but that you can create a life and an existence and a musical, flow and path playing to whatever number of crowds you do.
Yeah. It's like I'm in it for life. I think I'll play music until I'm old. So, yeah.
Yeah, damn right. Yeah, my dad is semi-retired, but he played a gig this past Saturday at the age of 80, and I feel
awesome.
Like if I can do what he does in my capacity, then I'll be a happy guy,
Oh, that's awesome.
And then the second thing that kind of brought up was this this drummer that I work with recently, his other job is as I think he called it a music therapist at this hospital group in Brooklyn. And because I'm in New York City, and he said he kind of fell into it because I don't know if it was a relative or friend was in the hospital and he was visiting frequently, and the person was sleeping most of the time, and he asked the nurse if he could just play some music as sort of a nice compliment to maybe soothe, even if she couldn't, wasn't awake. There's some part of her that could hear it. And he did. And eventually the hospital said, is this something that you would want to do more often? And now he not only plays for patients, but he does classes there where people who are either recovering from an illness or who have one or another mental health issues get together in a group and do various music activities.
That's a beautiful thing. Music really is a healing force. It is. And I think hearing, what you're doing isn't just, healing you, you are also affecting the people who are listening to it, and they can feel that transformation that's happening in you, and it affects them too. Yeah. People have always told me that my solo shows could go on for longer. I get nervous that I'm stretching people's attention spans and fade out. But some people are like, I could listen to that for hours and stuff. So that's always nice to hear. That's wonderful. And I mean, to me, it's, if that's the case, it's because you are locked into something that's so organic that it feels like it's meant to be there, and so are the people listening to it. So yeah, play on. That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. So I mean, that's great, because I think we can talk a lot about music as a business, but music is, or even music as an art, but music as an experience, music as existence. Yeah. Not something that people talk a lot about, Yeah, unfortunately. Yeah. Do you, so you said that you started with Olivia Tremor Control. You were younger than they are, you said. Yeah, right? I started when I was 19 years old. I was born in 75, and Bill was born in 68, so I'm 7 years younger than him. Okay, yeah. So yeah, you're closer in age to my wife, and I'm almost the exact same age as Bill would have been. So yeah, that's did you feel like they had been around, that they were kind of like older brothers in a way? Yeah, I looked up to them a lot. I still do. I almost kind of saw Bill as kind of a father figure to me, because he taught me so much about playing bass and just about music and life in general. So not only did I lose a friend and a bandmate, but I kind of lost someone I really looked up to as well. Yeah. Do you, well, a couple of questions. Do you, I don't know why I'm thinking this, but do you have a favorite instrument to play? I like to switch it up. I like clarinet, violin, bass. And on my solo record, I played some drums, some keyboard, and some guitar. I like to just switch it up. I like the variety. I don't really have a favorite, but I just like the just kind of rotating aspect of cycling through different things. Do you find that helps you to be able to switch to an instrument, and it kind of gives you more inspiration for what you're doing? Yeah. Because I've got a particular sound, kind of like Eric Dolphy had a particular sound on flute, on bass clarinet, and on alto sax, and on clarinet on some stuff too. And I feel like I have a different sound on each, and I like to just kind of mix up the worlds. That's great. I love that. You're treating each one as its own entity. You're not trying to, like when I started on guitar, having done piano for so long, initially it was a hard transition because I was thinking like a pianist, and I had to let the guitar kind of speak to me and say, no, this is a different instrument, and now I'm pretty much on bass all the time. And
I've just fallen in love with that instrument. So
that's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah. So now you've mentioned Will often, Will Cullen Hart, right?
Yeah.
What's he up to?
We played together just recently for that book that I was talking about, the Endless Elephant 6 book. Yeah. There was a reading from that at our public library here in town, and we played some old Olivia Tremor Control songs with him and AJ Griffin, and that was a lot of fun. So,
wow,
yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
that's cool. Can people get the Endless book anywhere?
Yeah.
That's good.
Just a quick search online will turn up. It was put out by Hatchet Books, and they have on their website links to all the places you can buy it.
Oh, good.
And it's even available as an audiobook too, if that's your thing.
Who did the audio?
I think it's read by 3 different people. You have your choice. I haven't listened to the audio, but I saw that on the site that you have your choice of listening to it read by 3 different people.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Yeah.
Whose idea was it to create this book?
The guy, Adam Clare, that wrote it, he actually lived in Athens for a while. And the book is really good, really a lot of in-depth interviews and information about a lot of the lesser known Elephant 6 groups as well as the more popular ones. So it's really nice.
I think that's kind of, it's invaluable because most people who know Elephant 6 know the big ticket, names, but don't necessarily know that there are way more bands associated.
Yeah.
Has anyone ever done a count of how many bands?
People have attempted to put like diagrams with all the, the main bands and then all the projects related to them and stuff like that. But it's kind of amorphous. It's kind of hard to really tell, like, because there's some groups that feature members of other groups, but they aren't really considered Elephant 6. A lot of the stuff on Cloud Recordings is like that, where I play on it so it could fall under the Elephant 6 umbrella, but it's kind of a Cloud Recordings thing as well.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, a lot of offshoot kind of things.
Yeah.
Just so weird. Right now, I noticed that the pattern on your couch, there's a swirl that looks like a 6.
Oh, yeah, I see that.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah, that's pretty wild.
Wow, what a weird, well, geez, is there anything that we haven't gone over that you'd like people to know, whether it's about your music or, life or anything or anybody else's music?
Well, I encourage people to follow me on Facebook and Instagram because I have quite an extensive record collection and I'm posting things of it. And sometimes I'll speak a little bit about it. And I just definitely encourage people to kind of take a deeper look into a lot of the things that influenced and inspired the music that I'm into and whatnot, the music that I play and whatnot. So, yeah.
That's great. I've noticed those posts as you're always posting about other music, which is very cool.
Yeah.
I'm gonna make sure to include the links to the links that you gave me, but also the link to the book and the link to your Facebook and Instagram as well.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, because I think I'd love people to be able to connect with you like that. Well, this has been absolutely great, and I can't thank you.
Oh yeah, thank you so much. You're a delight.
Oh, thank you. You too. I've been looking forward to this because, and I'll say it again because it bears repeating. Everything you do, you give off a vibe of just I don't know, inclusiveness, connection, and love, and that just.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. So thanks again, and we'll keep in touch for sure.
Awesome.
And thank you, everybody out there, for watching and listening. As always, this is Nick DiMatteo and John Kiran Fernandes, an awesome guest. Please check out every single link and listen to all of the music as much as you can get your ears around. And I will talk to you again next week.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.